What is up, Dynasty DNA Strand crew? I'm your host of the Dynasty DNA roster audits, Wizz. You can follow me on Twitter at DynastyWizzFF. And today we're joined here by TJ Blake. What's going on, TJ?
Oh, not too much, Wizz. How are you doing this fine day up there north and near the North Pole there in Alaska? I mean, you're about as close to Santa Claus as they come up there.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. I haven't seen Santa yet, so I don't know what he's doing. But he's probably making those toys, making those elves get to work, you know?
Yeah. How is the weather there? Any snow today?
We had a little bit of flurries yesterday, and the snow started to melt. So got a bunch of puddles all over the road. We found all the potholes that have been iced over and piled up with snow. So hopefully those get fixed sometime soon. But can't complain.
You're a soldier, Wizz. You are, my friend.
Yeah, but so today we are going over Lukebrazerol's roster, and he's in a Superflex tight end premium. The direction he wants to go into is contending. Anything else we should know? He said, I don't have much 2025 draft capital to work with, and that's what he's left us. So,
okay.
So going over to his roster, he has his best asset for sure is C.J. Stroud. He has Travis Etienne, Roschon Johnson, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, David Njoku, and he has Bryce Young in a super flex spot. And kind of scrolling down a little bit, that's all he has. I mean, he has a few upside players, Antonio Gibson, maybe something New England. Jerome Ford's going to fill in for a little bit there while Nick Chubb is healing up from his ACL, and he has Jake Ferguson. So,
okay. So, I mean, just like you said, no draft pick depth basically till 2026. That kind of stings. I will say this for Luke. I mean, he has a really great receiver room. Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua. A lot of people would kill to have a room like that. C.J. Stroud, as you mentioned, his best asset. But outside of that, man, not a lot of depth. I mean, the tight end position having David Njoku and Jake Ferguson, I do like that. But like you said, man, like his backup receivers behind them guys, Zay Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, not ideal. And the running back spot, really thin. He has Travis Etienne and Roschon Johnson. And I know he wants to go the contend direction. I know that you and I talked about this, Wiz. It'll be a little tough with no draft picks. I mean, he's got a really nice, he's got some star-studded players in his lineup, no doubt, but he don't have anything to backfill it with. And like we talked to, the running back depth really makes it tough. And before we start, I mean, it's always tough, and you don't always recommend making moves like this. But I mean, I can see kind of where he's coming from, having no draft picks and having some of the players he has. I mean, I guess he really wants to make a push here. So we're going to try to help him do that. But the first player, I think, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, his best asset, like you said, C.J. Stroud. Could we tear down into something possibly and get multiple players, get another nice quarterback coming back, and can we get multiple players to help fill some of them voids? What say you, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. So the guy I'm looking at, what roster we're looking at to target here is SMGBR. So he has Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is going to be a great asset. 1 year off his ACL injury. I think it's going to be good for him in there. We're projecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to go there. So, I mean, Cardinals, this is a perfect spot for a quarterback in there. And then also, if you look down more towards his team, he has Jaden Reed, which is a nice upside. He showed a lot of flashes this past season there in Green Bay with Jordan Love. And he also has Trey McBride, right? I think Luke's tight end room is pretty good. I think it's solid. But Trey McBride, I think, is a better asset than what Jake Ferguson and David Njoku offer, especially with the inconsistency of Deshaun Watson. But that's kind of a guy I'm targeting to make a trade for, C.J. Stroud, and give up like the 2.8 for all three of those players. I think that could get it done. If not, kick him David Njoku or Ferguson.
Yeah, I like that play. So you're saying trade C.J. Stroud to this team, this SMGRBR, and you say get Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, and Jaden Reed?
Yeah.
I like that move. I do. I mean, let's be honest, it's tough trading C.J. Stroud, and I mean, unless you absolutely have to, some teams, like when you're in a situation like Luke, maybe you have to make a tough decision like this, and I think this would be a good move. because you're backfilling with Kyler Murray, who I agree with you, I think is going to have a good year. You got to remember last year he's coming off that ACL tear, but towards the end of the season, he started turning it on. And like you mentioned, adding Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson's another nice young player they have there, Trey McBride. And I do like Jonathan Gannon, the head coach. I mean, I trust him too. I really like what I seen at him last year. So I think that's a good move. I mean, so, and what's nice is I think you said this was a tight end premium league, am I right? So, yeah, I mean, you get Trey McBride, and I mean, that helps fill some of his depth needs because you could get Trey McBride and David Njoku and Jake Ferguson. You could play them all if you had to. I mean, you get more points with the tight ends. David Njoku, let's be honest, you don't always have a warm and fuzzy feeling with him. Joe Flacco ain't throwing him the ball this year. If he was, he'd be a freaking beast, man. But, I mean, it's a little unnerving with Deshaun, but he's still a solid player. But you could play all three of them guys at that point. Makes a lot of sense to me. I hate to give up Stroud, but I like a move like that because I think you're getting a lot of good assets back. And I do love Jaden Reed. You know how I feel about him. I identified him early last year in the scouting process and loved him ever since. And, I mean, he really took off last year in Green Bay. And you got to think, too, Wizz, someone's going to step up in that Green Bay Packers receiver room and become a wide receiver one or more of the alpha-type guy. And I'll tell you, before Jaden Reed got hurt, it looked like he was kind of on his way to being the guy. So I really like this move. I think that I would make that move, Luke. That's a good one, Wiz. I do think, too, like looking at his team, I think that's the first move you need to make. I think you need to come and tear down off C.J. Stroud, as Wiz said. Get a package like that because that's a really nice package. It gives you multiple pieces. You need depth. That's a good move. I would move now, looking at his team. He is very weak at the running back spot. I know we were kind of looking at this a little bit before the show, and it's not easy when you're trying to contend when you don't have running back depth. I say it all the time. I don't care if it's Dynasty. I don't care if it's redraft. If you want to have a chance at winning your league, if you don't have running back depth, you're in trouble. I mean, you got to have guys. It's a body bag game. He does have some guys on his bench. I mean, he does have Travis Etienne, who's a nice piece. But outside of that, you know, he's got Roschon Johnson, who we all know DeAndre Swift signed with the Bears. That really hurt his stock a little bit. He does have Jerome Ford. I mean, he'll play at least a while until Nick Chubb gets back fully rolling. So that isn't horrible. But Antonio Gibson, I wish he would have went somewhere other than New England. But at the same time, maybe offers you a little bit of something. But I think running back's the next move I'm making here. And we talked about tearing down from C.J. Stroud. How about we tear down from Travis Etienne, too, and get some more people in his place? Wiz, I know we were talking about a trade, too. Let me scroll up here to this team. I believe it is this one right here. Let me look. It is the team that has Joe Mixon.
It's O.P. Corn.
O.P. Corn. All right, let me scroll down to him. O.P. Corn. So, O.P. Corn, yeah. I would take Travis Etienne. Could I get Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, and Devin Singletary? You know, could we try that? I mean, I think it's possible. Or could we get, you know, Gus Edwards? You know, someone like that. Is he on that roster?
No, that's a different one. But he has Raheem Mostert.
Oh, Raheem Mostert, yeah. Yeah, so could I take Travis Etienne, flip him, get Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert? I mean, I would try it. I mean, I think that could probably get it close. I mean, if we had to X Mostert out of the deal, I mean, hey, I would take even probably Kamara and Mixon at that point. Maybe I could get a smaller asset back. Could I even get a third-round pick? Could I get, you know, Deuce Vaughn? I mean, I don't love it, but at the same time, the Cowboys really don't have a running back on the roster right now. I mean, you never know. You know, he could get some opportunities. I just think it would be hard to trade Etienne just for Kamara and Mixon. But, I mean, if I had to, I would. But I'm just saying, if you could get a little bit of extra, if he don't want to move off all three of them guys, X Mostert, try to add Vaughn, try to add a third-round pick. Just get something extra on top if you can. Do you agree with that, Wiz?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of in there, like, you just don't have depth. And that's what we're trying to pick up with that trade in there to fill up a starting lineup. Because, you know, kind of like what TJ was saying, Antonio Gibson, he was a nice upside play to see where he's going to land free agency, and he went to New England. Probably not the worst spot, but one of the worst spots you could land. We don't know what the workload is going to be like with him and Stevenson. But, I mean, going in there, I mean, like, this is tough because you don't have much depth to work with, right? I don't recommend trading 2 years in advance. I usually don't like moving my next year's picks until the season starts, till I figure out exactly where I'm at, what are my team needs once injuries start happening, because it's going to happen. We can't predict them.
Yeah. Then the roster, it has Devin Singletary and Gus Edwards. I think that's the same roster. Am I right?
Possibly. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, look here. I'm trying to scroll up through them. I got a bunch of tabs pulled up. Yeah, it is. It's actually Kyle Hyman. He has, and he's, more kind of up towards the top a little bit. He has Devin Singletary. He has Gus Edwards. I mean, let's just say we can make both of them trades happen, Wiz. I know he said he really don't have no picks outside of, third and fourth rounders. I mean, would you trade? I mean, at this point, since you're all in, would you trade 2/3 for Devin Singletary? I mean, if it's what it takes to get it done, or third to fourth?
Yeah.
I mean, just to add depth.
Yeah. So I think let me go hold up. Let's see. He messaged me what his picks were, but I believe he had the 2-8.
Yeah, I think we were packaging that with Stroud. Am I right?
Oh yeah, possibly. I mean, just goes in there. I mean, you can also move Njoku or Ferguson, because he has Andrews and Schultz, so he doesn't really need it in there. But what about if you go over to Drew for his running backs? He has Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, Austin Eckler, Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dow. I mean, you brought up Cowboys, right? Rico Dow, I think, is a better back than Deuce Vaughn is.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I could get Dwaddle, that's great. He'd be my first choice. I'm just saying, there's really no here right now. I mean, I'm sure Jerry's going to bring someone in the draft, but you never know. I mean, you could maybe get a diamond in the rough there, and he needs running back.
Right, absolutely. But, Drew, he has is Cole Kmet for tight end. You could probably package Ferguson or Njoku and get, you'd be shooting high, but can you get DeAndre Swift? I don't think you would be able to get that done. But possibly, I mean, he's hurt on tight ends in there. But, I mean, it's kind of a tough situation we're in.
Yeah, it's hard when you don't have a lot of draft capital. And like I said, kind of with Luke's situation, he's kind of in the middle, and it's the hardest place you can be. But since you have no picks, I can see why he wants to go this route a little bit. But it's like, boy, you're going to have to tear down off some great players. Like we said, C.J. Stroud, Travis Etienne. Can you bring in more depth? I mean, sure, they don't have as sexy, flashy names. But like you said, could we trade Stroud in the 208, get Kyler Murray, get Jaden Reed, and get Trey McBride? That's a good trade for me. And then you're stacking Kyler Murray and Trey McBride. That's not a bad thing. So, I mean, I like that deal. I mean, because you gotta add pieces here. I like his receivers, but outside of that, man, he's kind of hurting, and you got to add multiple players. And really at this point, Luke, I mean, given the situation you're in, you almost got to trust Bryce Young to be your guy, in that second quarterback spot, unless you can maybe package something and tear down, like Wizz said, from Bryce Young to Aaron Rodgers. I don't recommend doing that either. But at the same time, if you're trying to win, maybe you could do that as well. I mean, could you try to maybe, if you make a couple of these trades happen, could you take Bryce Young and a little extra and try to package that into Kirk Cousins? Maybe that's possible.
Right.
So
yeah, and there's other guys in there. You can shoot high on Miles Sanders. Pick him up for a fourth. That's kind of what we suggested in the last video in there. But just finding guys that are values really depleted in there. Joshua Palmer. I mean, he's the wide receiver 2 in Los Angeles right now. I mean, I'm sure they'll bring in Malik Neighbors or a different wide receiver in there, because Quentin Johnson's not that guy. He shouldn't be that wide receiver 1 on that team. But I mean, that's another upside play in there. But I mean, overall, I think we would suggest probably going more to a retooling kind of year here. I would possibly try to get your 25 first back in there. Move Travis Etienne, and then just kind of play again for next season. I know that's not the advice you wanted, but that's probably what the best, so you don't wreck your team long term.
Because you have a really nice receiving core, Luke, but like Wiz said, you're probably better served to do that. Could you take Travis Etienne, get a first back? Could you get this? Could you get that? Could you take them tight ends and possibly package them in to get a couple seconds or a second and a prospect? Anything you can get, maybe in that line if you do decide to go that route. But if you do want to contend, I do think the only thing that makes sense with no draft picks is kind of what we suggested. You got to take these guys and you got to tear down because you have no assets to trade for, more proven type of players. You're pretty well stuck. And I mean, if you want to improve, you can't really trade a Nakua. You can't really trade a CD Lamb. You can't really trade Almond Raw. You got to hold on to them guys if you're trying to contend. And really, I mean, you have a nice receiver room. Build around that. I mean, you're kind of in a semi-rebuild. I've seen some teams that have been in some real desolate situations. At least you have some pieces here. CJ Stroud is a phenomenal piece in a Dynasty Fantasy Football League. I mean, you got him. I mean, so I'm like Wizz. I tend to lean more that way if it was my team personally. But if you do want to try to go for it, I think the moves that we brought up are some moves that you can go. Another one is Gus Edwards. I mean, Wizz, this is your guy from the Ravens. I wouldn't mind throwing a fourth or two fourths for Gus Edwards to see what happens, because you got to remember, who coaches the Ravens?
Harbaugh.
Who coaches the Chargers?
Harbaugh.
So there's a little insider information there about Gus Edwards. And you got to think, man, John and Jim have a lot of the same philosophies. They like to play tough, hard-nosed football. Gus Edwards is a tough, hard-nosed player. I do think they bring in probably Blake Corum. That's the big thing going around. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Gus Edwards has a little bit of a role in this offense. And as we mentioned, running back depth, if you're trying to go for it, if you're all in at that point, let's say you make all the trades we suggested, I would just take them first and flip it for Gus Edwards or someone like that, just to give me an extra body, someone who I think will at least be on the field here and there, and it gives you another option. So, but I'm like Wizz, it's a tough situation that you're in. You got a nice starting roster pretty much, but there's really not a lot of depth to work with, man. And when you're trying to contend, you got to have running back help.
Right, absolutely. And I wouldn't recommend trading your 26 picks here. I'm guessing you're probably in the same philosophy. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to just keep doubling down and keep digging your hole deeper and deeper. Because, I mean, there's a good possibility this, like, just because you trade for Joe Mixon, Kamara, and stuff, there's still a possibility it's going to blow back in your face, right? You're losing a lot of youth in there. Mixon and Kamara's value are probably going to be depleted by a lot this time next season. So you're going to lose a lot of value for this all-in kind of poker chip move here. And it's really easy to lose out on this. I've done it before where I thought I was a contender. I just kept doubling down, and it really screwed with my team for probably about 2 years before I was able to start recontending. So just kind of be careful with that and understand the risk that you're putting yourself into by making these moves.
And you know this too, Wiz. I've had some really good teams. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to lose. And it doesn't matter. Like, when it gets to fantasy, any kind of fantasy league, you make the playoffs, anything can happen. So, I mean, just because you might set yourself up to have a good team, like Wiz said, your run's going to be short just because of the given, like, age of Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara, some of these guys you acquire. And, you're basically going all in for one shot, maybe two if you're real lucky. But I'm like you. I'm not trading my 2026 picks, Luke. Do not trade any of them. And I'm like Wiz, it's a tough situation, but hold your head up because I like your receiver core. I think you did a hell of a job, like with your receivers. You got a nice job there with your receiving core, but you gotta, maybe retool a little bit. I wouldn't even so much say you'd have to rebuild. You could retool, like Wiz said. Trade Travis Etienne, get a first. You know how it is too, Wiz. When the season gets closer, you could probably get a first and a little bit of a plus for Travis Etienne.
Right, absolutely.
So you could do that and trade them tight ends off, and get some picks and maybe some prospects back. And then you try to build around that receiving core and CJ Stroud. You're not near as bad a position as a lot of people would be. Sure, it stinks you might not be able to contend next year, but if you do it right, in 2 or 3 years with the team you have, you could really make some noise. So that's the way I feel too.
Right. So just as a recap in there, if you want to try to contend, push all those chips in, move CJ Stroud for Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, Jane Reed, and maybe if you could give a plus on top of it, that's fine. Just a small plus, like a second-round pick or Jake Ferguson or David Njoku in there. And then you just need to tear down from Travis Etienne, unfortunately, pick up more RB depth in there. But, as goes on, obviously just because we suggest these trades doesn't mean they're going to work, right? Other people have different values than what we have in there. So if there's a trade that comes across, right, drop in the Discord, right? That's what the tool's there for, right? There's so many people always actively responding in there. If it's not us, then it's another member, just out there to help everyone else out, because our goal in the Discord is to make as many people win championships as possible, right? Strengthen their dynasty teams, make it the best that it could possibly be in there. So, just drop those trades in beforehand, and then people will be like, oh, I don't really like it. I think you need more value on this side. Or, send that, smash that, So.
Yep. It's nice having everyone's opinion, and, and too, like, some players are brand new at this. Some of us have played in so many leagues, you just know what players' values are right now, and it's like, oh, that's a steal, or like you said, no way. Decline that as fast as you can, So, I mean, there's two ways to look about it, but you're right. The Discord's a great tool, and anyone listening, I know we mentioned this in the last episode. It's in the link in the description. You can join for free, and we'd love to have you. It's a great place to talk football all off season long. You can talk player values, trades, like Wizz said. We're going to talk everything at the NFL draft. Like we talked, that thing's going to explode during the NFL draft. It did during free agency, and it made it fun. It is always buzzing. It's up around a couple hundred members, and we'd love to have you. And Luke, we wish you the best of luck, man. Like I said, regardless, either way you want to go, keep your head up. I think you got some nice pieces as far as some young guys and some talent. You just got to get a little more depth and get some of them picks back, I think. If you do that and you keep them 26 picks and you play your cards right, you make a few more right trades, I think you could put yourself in pole position in a couple years.
Absolutely. But until the next one, or if you guys want to submit your roster to be reviewed, it's in the Discord. It's under that tab. All you have to do is fill out that Google Forms document. We'll get it. We'll get to it when we can. I know we just had 3 or 4 new ones come through, TJ. So we got a lot more work to do to catch up. But we're gonna start cranking these out a lot more, and hopefully start doing 2 a day or something like that to catch back up, and then slowly go back down to maybe every other day. But yeah.
We'll be burning the midnight oil, and I think we got our old buddy Seawill coming up next. I think.
Yeah. Seawill's up next. He has 3 roster submissions, so I can't wait to check out his roster. So
he's old. He's an old school OG Dynasty DNA. Seawill, you're my man. I tell you what, I really seen that rookie mock draft he did with Dynasty Dog Mike. He killed it. That's what I said. He's the man. He knows what he's shopping for. When he's going to the grocery store, he know when he's picking up.
Yeah, so. It sucked because on the turnaround he kept snagging my picks. So.
He's a super genius. Seawill, we're gonna do your rosters next, man. Looking forward to it. But Luke, as we said, good luck, brother. We hope it all works out.
Adios.
See ya.